Hey Photo World, welcome back to another episode here on takeandtalkpics.com. This is another episode from the former podcast. Please subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join the email list. Let's get to that 1,000 subscriber marker so that way I can add a new video every single week. Enjoy. Take and Talk Pics, episode 23, featuring Abby Grace.
If you are one of those people that sits around and does nothing but complain about what you don't have, you will inevitably be that bitter, angry shell of a photographer.
Hey Photo World, today's featured guest is Abby Grace Springman, the photographer and owner of Abby Grace Photography. She's based in Washington, D.C. as a wedding and anniversary photographer who specializes in the old-school-chic couples where she documents authentic love. The majority of Abby's work is far from posed, and those candid moments show the love her clients share in their most true form. Simply put, her images are real. Abby, welcome to Take and Talk Pics.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Our pre-chat was awesome already, so I'm really excited about what you can share with Photo World. And on that note, go ahead and share a little bit more about you and your photography business.
Yeah. Okay. So, like you said, my name is Abby Grace, and my business is based in the Washington, D.C. area. It's actually like 40 minutes outside of D.C., but we just say D.C. because nobody knows where Sterling, Virginia is. And I specialize in anniversary sessions and weddings for the old school chic couple in love. And I've just found over the last couple of years that honing more and more into who I am as a person helps me identify the kind of weddings and anniversary sessions that I want to be photographing. So that's been really cool to see myself grow in that area. I live here in Sterling with my husband and our 2 German Shepherd mixed puppies. And I don't know, I'm the kind of person that loves to live out loud. And but at the same time, I'm, the older and older I get. In all my years of wisdom, I'm 27. But I just love learning more and more about who I am. And I don't know if that was what you're looking for.
That is exactly what I'm looking for. It's just introducing yourself. And and she loves exclamation points, as I read on your website.
Yes, I do.
So just getting the excitement out there and keeping it alive.
I like to think that if I talk in exclamation points and smiley faces, that people won't take not harsh words, but disappointment quite as bad. Because they're like, well, she put a smiley face at the end of it. She can't be upset.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a loose comment that way.
Exactly.
So we're all about sharing stories here, especially yours, and really diving into your journey as a photographer. I find that with photographers and any business owner really, there's usually a mantra or a quote or a few of them that we live by to kind of keep us going every day because it's not the typical 9-to-5 type of job. Is there something that you live by you can share with Photo World?
That's a really good question. So I'm a Christian, and my faith governs a lot, not governs, but is where so much of my inspiration for my business comes from, and specifically stories of redemption. And because my husband is my redemption story, coming from a place of just utter brokenness and worthlessness and being made whole and being made new again. And my husband was sort of the vessel that was used to be that story of redemption for me. And so the way that I see love is sort of like broken stories that are then made whole. And I love documenting that, the victory on the other side of that. So that's where the anniversary sessions come in, documenting victories, small little victories along the way. So I guess the theme of stories of redemption is really, I know that's not a quote or a mantra, but just redemption is such a huge theme in what I do. And then I also, like you said in your introduction, I'm definitely a person who values honesty and authenticity. And so I try, in all my interactions and everything that I photograph, to sort of stick to love, authenticity, and honesty. I want to love the heck out of my clients. I want to be authentic with them, and I want them to be authentic with me. And then I want to be honest with people. I've never been accused of sugarcoating anything. So if it comes, if you have to err on one side, I'm usually a little bit more blunt, but that way people never wonder where they stand with me. And then there's this Maya Angelou quote that I absolutely love. I have a degree in communications with a concentration in PR. And so for me, the how of the way things are done is often just as important as the what that's being delivered. So this quote by Maya Angelou is one of my favorites. It's, at the end of the day, people won't remember what you said or did. They will remember how you made them feel. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so important, because there have been specific situations with clients that I'm just that absolutely rings true. It almost isn't even about the pictures. It's about the way that I made them feel that affects the way they see their pictures.
I feel exactly the same to that end. I love it. I'm primarily a wedding photographer, and I love the end of the weddings where they talk about you and the way you were working that day, or how little they felt they saw you, but they know everything was going on. Mm-hmm. And it's just that feeling we get, not so much as picture makers and creators of images, but just as an individual working our business. Like, oh my gosh, good. I did a good job, and that shined through. And it's really hard to get to that point.
And they haven't even seen any of the wedding pictures. They're like, you did such a good job. And you're like, how do you know?
Right. So personality is huge in your photo business out there, like you have to be able to have that connection and that fit with your clients. Mm-hmm. Can you share with us what sparked your interest in photography enough to pursue it as a career? Like you said, you were doing a degree in a totally different field, but I mean, obviously that applies.
Yeah. So I love people. I'm a huge people person. I love being around people. Even if I'm by myself with a journal, I just love people. So I think that's where the communication side of things comes in. So I was studying comms down at Radford University, and I had to take a fine art class because somehow being a music major for a whole year didn't qualify, any of my 20 band classes. So I took darkroom photography, which is like fine art film 101. As cliche as it sounds, completely fell in love with the process of seeing images bloom to life on a piece of paper that was previously blank. It was magic to me. And I remember at the beginning of the semester, we each got a ream of black and white Ilford paper with 100 sheets in it. And I went through 2 of those. By the end of the semester, I went through 2 to 3 times as much film as everyone else. And I just was I was in the darkroom until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning on like a Friday night, which is super cool, by the way. And so I realized at that point, like, hey, this is something, like, I've stumbled upon something real, and I've stumbled upon something that, like, I love and that I'm also pretty good at, not in like a self-satisfactory way, but just I was getting really good feedback from my art professor, and just it finally felt like there was harmony, it was so good. And then I realized a few months later that I really liked stalking people's wedding pictures on Facebook, it was almost weird. Like, I'd see a friend had commented on someone else's status, and like the person whose status they commented on looked like they might be wearing a white dress in their picture. So I'd like click over to their profile and see if I could find their wedding pictures, and I was like, oh, wait a second, maybe these two could go together. And so I just started the way that a lot of people did, and I emailed a bunch of photographers in the Northern Virginia area to ask, hey, how did you get started? Like, I'm getting a degree in communication. Do I need a degree in photography? Should I change my major to fine art and thus incur 2 more years of school that I wasn't planning for? And there's only 2 people that emailed me back out of the dozens that I emailed. And one of them, his name was Mike. He ended up inviting me on to be a second shooter. He was really gracious with me, super generous, and he ended up being my mentor the next year. So I spent my first year of wedding photography apprenticing under him, and I kind of credit the beginning to Mike because he was so open and so honest with me. And then from there, things kind of took off. I started booking my own weddings. And
Abby, we know as business owners, as photographers in this competitive world that we have, there are ups and there's definitely downs, and we learn from those hard times where we, have a failure moment or something didn't go as planned. Can you share with Photo World a time where it didn't really work out, but you're better for it now?
Yeah. So that was actually, that's a really good question. I've had several of those, and being a super open and honest person, I love sharing about them because I think too often what we want, as solo business owners, the tendency is to try to keep save face and not let anyone see you fail. And those are where my biggest hangups have come, is I don't want other people to see me fail. And so, hold on tight to everything, and then everything falls that much harder. So I think the one of the biggest defining moments was when I launched my first workshop. I hadn't really given it very much thought before I launched it. I was just like, I want to teach a workshop. I've been in business for 2 or 3 years now. I'm totally qualified. And everyone that I respect is teaching workshops. So I want that sort of stamp of approval. I've made it. I can teach a workshop. People are going to pay to come learn from me. So I didn't lesson plan or anything before launching it. So the workshop that I was teaching was it's called A Date with Abby Grace, which isn't explanatory at all. It gives you no idea as to what the workshop was. It was just almost like people should want to come learn from me because I'm awesome, not because I have work that will back this up. So I launched the workshop. I announced it and I launched registration on the same day, which was my first mistake. I should have launched the idea, and then registration should have started the next week, or at least some sort of buffer zone between the two, because I only had like a 24-hour discount coupon. So I was like, hey, surprise, I'm teaching a workshop and you only have 24 hours to decide whether or not you want to make a large financial investment. Go, and so I ended up only selling 4 workshop seats, and it was like, which was great. Like the 4 people that came, actually it was 5 people because I gave away a seat in order to try to get more people to sign up, which they didn't. But the 5 girls that ended up coming, it was so good to spend the time with them. And like, honestly, I don't know how that I would have been able to handle 10. 10 was how many seats I had open. But I just remember being like crushed emotionally when I was like, I've only sold 4 workshop seats, and like the photographers that I respect, like Justin and Mary and Caitlin James, sell out workshop seats like that. What's wrong with me that I can't do that? BT dubs, Abby, they've been in business for 2 to 3 times as long as you. So there's that. But then also like, it taught me just how much of my self-worth was wrapped up in the success of my business. There's a success or failure of my business. And like, as entrepreneurs, that's something that we tend to do because what we do is so inevitably personal.
Right.
But like, I believe that my worth isn't based in my business. And like, if I base my worth on my business, and when my business fails, I fail. And like, that can plunge you into depression, and like it's not healthy to have your self-worth based on how much money you make in one year, how many people see you succeed. So it taught me a lot about, okay, for the next time, here's how I'm going to proceed with like launching registration, but then also like huge reality check that, Abby, like, first of all, you are not as awesome as you think you are in a healthy way, but then also like wake up call, like, I don't know, your just worth needs to be based on something bigger than workshop seats. Like if that's going to determine your health, your happiness and your health, we're going to have a lot more problems down the road.
For sure. No, I mean, that's a really good story, and I really appreciate the details that you're giving us, because it kind of gets us right there. And we've all had that feeling where we see our work, we're out there doing it, but really we're in the confines of our home and our editing and our little online interactions, feeling like there's something happening, and then we push for something amazing, something big, or we put a picture out there and expect this great feedback, and nothing goes down. And what is this about? I thought I was doing great. Well, you're not totally there yet, and that's okay. But it's really devastating when you have that feeling that you're not where you thought you were. Coming back from that is a huge success. So it's great that you turned that failure around to learn from your mistake and realize, okay, there's a better way to do this. There's a next time, and that's okay. When you're considering your photography, do you have something that kind of stands out as the most important practice from start to finish with a client interaction to the end of the job, or in your workflow of what you do? Just something that kind of stands out. It's there for every job.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good question, because my most recent workshop series, A Practical Wedding Workshop, is actually all about that. And it's what it boils down to is that there isn't one thing that I do that's like the Abby Grace method. Like, I don't like hang from a chandelier and shoot the first dance and get these like phenomenal first dance pictures. There's not like a certain lens that I use or a certain like editing thing that I apply to all my pictures. Really what it comes down to, and as a communications professional, it makes total sense that my sort of like love mark on my clients is all the little nuances throughout the process that come together to make one awesome experience for my clients. So I think Caitlin James phrases it as micro changes, macro results. So like the way that I email my clients when it comes time to like tell them, hey, it's your invoice is due, I don't send just a like announcement, your final invoice is due, please pay me $5,000. Like, right. Because then it becomes a very transactional relationship. So last night I was sending out invoices to my May couples, and for the subject line it was, it's the final countdown. It's like, oh, that's funny, like, I mean, I think it's hilarious. You guys might not think it's hilarious, but
I think it's fun.
But it's like from the first time they click on that email, like it's like, oh, that's totally Abby. Like she would do that. Because I sang during engagement sessions, not like The Hills Are Alive, but just I like saying while I'm doing it because it's funny and it's like it's quirky and like it's just me. And so sending an email that's very me and starts it off like, hey, let me remind you, we have a relationship here. This isn't just about you pay me money and I provide you with a service, end of transaction. And so for me, it's about like reminding my clients throughout the process, this is a relationship. You know, when we schedule your engagement session, I don't want you guys to be thinking about the money that you've just spent. I want you to be thinking about the fact that you guys are going to fall in love again right in front of my camera. Or for my anniversary session couples, like $800 for me, at least, that's a lot to spend on a portrait session. And so I want, once they've paid me that, for them to forget about the money, and every single interaction they have with me from there isn't about, well, you paid me, I will now provide you with a service. It's about, hey, I love you guys and I want to encourage you and I want your marriage to be better because of this time that you've had in front of my camera. For me, finding little things that I can say to like bring it back to the relationship instead of the money, you know?
It more than answers the question. I think you gave us a lot of great nuggets there. All the services, all the people involved, they do have to form a relationship with the client. But the most interactive in my mind, and maybe I'm biased because I'm a photographer, is the photography.
Making them feel better about the fact that they've just spent a bunch of money. Make sure we get along well so that this doesn't become a transactional thing. I want you guys to feel comfortable enough that when you look at your pictures, it's not, oh, these are so beautiful, glad we spent $5,000 to $7,000 on them. It's, oh my gosh, I remember exactly how it felt when he took my hand like that. Or I remember the words that he whispered in my ear that like will never again be repeated because it wasn't video recorded, but we have a photo of that particular moment in time that makes me remember how I felt rather than the money thing. So right.
Yeah, because 10, 20, 30 years down the road, that little bit of money isn't going to mean much. You know?
Right.
It's going to be everything else that happened, the reason you got those memories. So all good stuff, but I'm going to get us moving along here only because we got a lot more to cover. And we have a wide range of photographers listening. There's businesses from just starting out to, you know, years into it, kind of at a plateau where they go next. There's pros who listen in just to hear the entrepreneurial side of things. But Abby, can you share with Photo World one thing you believe would lead to growth and success in a business for a photographer, regardless of their current level?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things for me is recognizing that it's not about me. Which sounds counterintuitive because most of us are solo business owners. And you're like, well, of course it's about me. I have to be able to pay my bills. And like, I'm the only thing that sets me apart from Susie Q down the street, who also shoots with a Canon 5D Mark III and a 50mm 1.2. So like in that essence, yes, your business is, you know, you are what sets your business apart. But at the same time, like when it comes down to it, like it's not about me, it's about my couples. And like my sort of why behind my vision behind my entire business is to extend the life of any given marriage through the use of photography by giving couples reminders of moments in time where they felt especially in love, so that years down the road when things get hard, because I believe every marriage will inevitably hit a difficult point, that those images can serve as a reminder of how they felt, you know, at this particular moment in time. And so for me, that vision is bigger than myself. And so if it comes down to I'm at a wedding and the bridesmaids are like, can we just take a jumping picture? I hate bridal party jumping pictures. But like, it's not about, like, I could say I don't take those. Like that's not in line with my vision. But it's more important for me to have a bride who looks back at those photos and is like, oh, that was so goofy. And I know Abby hates those pictures, but she took it anyway. And you know, that sort of, it's not about me breaks down into all these different facets. Like I'm allowed to have a business that's based on my best interests and my family's best interests. But in the end, like if it comes down to my ego or serving a choice between my ego or serving my couples well, it's going to come down to serving my couples well. And my ego goes out the door every time. In theory, there are times obviously where like, can you take a jumping picture? Like with gritted teeth, I'm like, fine. But you know, at the end of the day, like that, having like a couple-centric or a client-centric viewpoint, I think is what can make a difference between a wildly successful business where people are like, what is it that makes that person so successful? And the bitter photographer who sits at home who's been doing this for 8 years, who's like, why can't I get that kind of traction? You know what I mean? Exactly.
And Photo World, I hope you're hearing the repetition in what Abby's saying, just about the fit, about the personality, about it being about the clients, and really putting yourself not into your business, but into what your business is there for. And I think that leads really well into the next question, because I feel the answer could be similar. But bring us down to that moment, that time when you had that aha moment. Something went off, that light bulb went off, and that's when things really started to change in your photography business.
Oh, that's a really good question. Okay, so I've had several aha moments, throughout my bit. Everybody does. And there's like 5 or 6, like almost like points along the timeline that I can point to and be like, my business changed and on that day as a result of blah, blah, blah. But when it comes to what you were just at, like, what is it that sort of made the difference that things started growing to where they are now, is when I realized that my lot in life is not, or my business's lot in life is not going to be the same as everybody else's. And I think there's this tendency to look at people like, oh gosh, I don't know. I don't follow a lot of the photographers that I'm sure your audience listens to, but like Jeremy Cohort, like, oh my gosh, that guy is so successful and he is so good at what he does. That's the goal, is to get where Jeremy Cohort is. But like, if that's not like what life has planned for you, it doesn't matter how hard you try. You will never get to where Jeremy Cohort is if that's just not your lot in life. In the same way, I may never reach the same level of success as Caitlin James or Justin and Mary if that's not what destiny has planned for me. And so I think recognizing not the limitations, but just that your lot in life is going to look different than the photographer down the street, and that just because Caitlin James taught a workshop in Australia, or just because, Joey L does these phenomenal portraits for celebrities and people in Ethiopia or Ghana or whatever, that just because they do that doesn't mean that that's what I'm supposed to do. And there's freedom in that like, hey, it would be cool to teach a workshop in Australia, but like, maybe that's not what life has destined for me. And if not, that's okay. And I shouldn't feel pressured to reach that bar, because that bar is on a completely different course than the one that I'm on. So it doesn't make sense for me to try to reach a goal that's not even on my course.
And that's a really good point, because it's hard to look at all the different people and what they're doing. I mean, I've watched Joey L's career since I first learned about him, and he was just really getting some traction.
Yeah.
I've watched his career a little bit from the sidelines, and then you start comparing yourself to these people. And that's the worst way to do it, especially when you're starting out. You're comparing your start to someone else's middle, or they've gotten somewhere else.
I have that quote actually printed on this picture. For the people that can't see the
Beautiful.
podcast, I'm holding this picture print up to.
Don't compare your beginnings to someone else's middle. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a John Acuff quote, and it's one of my favorites. That like I feel like I'm sort of not really in the beginning anymore. I'm in the sort of middle stages. But like, I have to remind myself, like, I might be in the middle, and like Joey L might be in the middle. So don't compare your middle to somebody else's middle. But
right.
like, it doesn't make sense. You're comparing apples and oranges. It's not even apples and oranges. It's like pomegranates and chard.
Yeah.
Like
so it's totally different stuff.
Never be the same.
And you can't get stuck in that rut. But I think your aha moment is really good in realizing that. And it takes years. I mean, that's wisdom that comes with years of experience. And, to get to that point and realizing there's so many different paths that we're on. They don't all lead to the same place. They don't all have the same history behind them just to get to the same destination either. When you've been going down this path here, Abby, can you share with Photo World a time where you felt, I made it as a photographer? I don't really believe there's one moment, because the second we decide that's the I made it, I'm done, then you instantly failed after that. You're over. Yeah. But can you bring us to a story that was really a big highlight, that kind of, you didn't even know you were capable of that as a photographer?
Yeah. So that's such a funny question, because you sent me a list of, questions that you thought you might ask beforehand. And it was like, what was the, time where you sort of felt like you made it? And I'm like, I'll let you know when I get there. Because I still don't, it blows my mind when people come up to me and are like, at a conference or a workshop or whatever, and like, I read this blog post that you wrote. I'm like, really? I thought my granny was the only person that read my blog. And so it's just, on the one hand, like, pride is something that I've always struggled with, which is where the whole like crushing disappointment from not selling out a workshop came from. So, some people are naturally humble. I am not. But I'd say that a moment where I didn't know I was capable of that. I had the opportunity to speak at the Creative at Heart conference in March, and it's a brand new conference, but it's like blowing up like wildfire. It's amazing. Yeah, I had the opportunity to speak there, and Kat, the founder, asked me to speak on vision. Actually, she asked me what I'd want to speak on, and I just kind of like tossed out, I don't know, how about vision? And when I started digging into my talk and realizing, actually, this has a lot more weight in my business than I realized, and I never thought about how many decisions were based on this concept of vision and were governed by this compass of vision that helps me navigate where I'm going. And after I delivered my talk, having people come up there was a girl actually who came to talk to me who like couldn't talk for like 2 or 3 minutes because she was so choked up, and she was like, I never knew what my business was missing until I heard your talk, and now I know that it's vision. And it was like, oh, it was just so cool to be able to see other people's light bulb moments and aha moments happen because God chose to use me to speak to this group of women of 75 to 100 people to share with them like, hey, this is what I found works for me. And so the concept of vision, like people not even knowing this is a thing I need to be thinking about, to have the privilege of being the one to turn that light bulb on and be like, hey, start thinking about this. This could make huge waves in your business. It was such a privilege and such an honor. I'll never forget that afternoon. It was amazing.
That's fantastic. And you were able to let those light bulbs go off for a bunch of people in the room and kind of make those changes for them. And we kind of get that when we hear certain things. So Abby, during your career so far as a photographer, can you recall the best advice you have ever received?
Oh gosh, that's a really good question. Probably it's not about you. For me, I was like, that's great. That's not what mine looks like. Mine is about being famous and being awesome and making a lot of money. So once that sense or that idea of humility really started to sink in, it changed everything. Learning it's not about you, and like hearing that over and over and over again, and hearing it in a gentle way, not like someone shoving it down your throat, but more like, hey, I love you, and I'm telling you it's not about you because I want to see you grow and I want to see you thrive. And along that same vein, the advice to like, it's really lonely at the top, that community among entrepreneurs is so important because so often our self-worth is governed by, we think it's governed by how well or poorly our business is doing. Like we need that community. We need people that we can go alongside of and be like, hey man, I'm struggling. I still need to book 5 weddings. Actually, I have a list on my wall right here. I need 5 weddings, 14 anniversary sessions this year. And like to be able to call my good friends and be like, hey, I need help. Do you have any brides that are coming your way that maybe your book, would you mind sending them to me? And like, that is invaluable. Like to be able to have other photographers who are not only willing to come along and cheer for me, but like fight with me. And like, I would do that for them. I would go up to battle for their businesses. And the whole like, go it alone, don't like talk to your competition because they'll steal business from you. Like my business has only grown because I've been in community with other photographers.
It's really hard to get in that mindset that there is no competition. It's difficult to see that it's not a piece of the pie kind of thing. There's enough for all of us. There's abundance out there. For the photographers listening, it's really good to kind of consider, man, I should make some changes in my business to advance, or if I'm starting out, what do I do? So I try to present you with a little scenario that if you woke up tomorrow with no business, you have all the gear and the same knowledge that you currently have today. If you had to start a new photography business all over again, what would you do first?
Are we talking like esoterically? Like what ideals would you instill in your business? Or like, no, seriously, pedal to the metal, like what would be the first thing you do when you sit down at your computer that morning?
It's going to be your choice. You can take it either direction because I like the variety that people give because I get both sides of it, of just kind of the thought process that goes behind it, or okay, I'm going to put my shoes on and go outside and do this right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say my first advice would be to start emailing people you want to work with and offering to serve them. Again, it's about me. It's about how can I make other people's lives better? So, when we were talking about community with other photographers, referral circles, all of those things are built out of like reaching out to other people and not saying, hey, how can you serve me? But more, how can I be a blessing to you? How can I like make your life better in some way, shape, or form? So that would be my sort of like esoteric idea, but like, well, not, I guess it's both,
Yeah,
like
it's both.
And practical. But then my other piece of advice would be to start an Instagram account.
Start getting some pictures out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, to that end, do you have an app or an internet resource that you think photo world could benefit from knowing about?
An app or what was it? A photo resource?
An internet resource.
Oh, I love Pixify. Oh my gosh, I love Pixify so much. I started using Pixify, I think it was a year and a half ago. It's a studio management software. Prior to using Pixify, I was booking all of my clients using paper and pen. So like, hey, cool, you want to book me? Great. Here's a PDF of a contract, print it out, fill it out, send it to me with a paper check. So I was waiting anywhere from 3 days to 3 weeks to get paid. And like, I don't reserve a date on my calendar until I have the contract and the retainer in hand. And so there was this like ambiguous gray area where I was like, well, I know you told me you sent the contract, but it's been 3 weeks and I still haven't received it. I cannot continue to turn away other clients because of this.
Right.
So Pixify has helped make that go away. Also, it helps with, my husband has started to come on to do some work with me. And so it's helpful because if he's like fielding inquiries, he can look through Pixabay and like, is she booked on these dates? Or I can't remember what her hourly coverage is. And like, all of that stuff is laid out in Pixabay. There's pricing templates, there's email templates. You can handle all your client communication through there if you want to. So it's like, oh my gosh. And I was in Europe for 2 weeks. I typically do like a 2-week Europe trip each year by myself. And it's awesome while I'm traveling. If someone's like, okay, great, we want to book with you, I don't have to be like, okay, wait till I get home and I'll send you a contract.
Right.
I can book clients while I'm, 5,000 miles away in Italy.
Photo World knows we'll have this resource and the other things we've talked about in the show notes page. Just go ahead and search Abby on takingtalkpics.com and her show notes will pop right up. We'll get all that stuff to you, including her website and blog, which is where you'll see her beautiful work, which we don't even talk about much on the show, but it's definitely there. She wouldn't be on the show if she didn't have that. So
Thanks.
Abby, what one piece of gear, other than the camera bodies themselves, what one piece of gear could you not live without?
Film.
Film?
Yeah, I shoot all of my travel work and some of my ballerina work, which is what I do for personal inspiration on film. And it helps me slow down and really think about what it is I'm photographing, because every time you click the shutter, it's $2.
Right.
So I would say film first. And then second is my Kelly Moore bag. Oh, no, I lied. My Think Tank bag. Yeah, I love my Kelly Moore, but my Think Tank bag is amazing. I have the Airport International version 2.0. And it houses all my lenses and all my camera bodies and batteries and cards and everything like that. And it looks like a piece of luggage. So I'm super paranoid. My dad's a cop. Both my brothers are in the military, and I read CNN Justice section all the time. So I'm like super paranoid about violent crime.
Right.
So I'm totally comfortable leaving this bag in my car during an engagement session if I want to leave, an extra camera body in there, like spare batteries or whatever, because it just looks like a piece of luggage, and I'm not worried about traveling internationally with it because, again, it just looks like another piece of luggage.
And you can take it as carry-on because of the dimensions
Yes,
they
you can.
make. It's like the largest they'll let through on planes, which is great.
Yeah.
So you can keep your gear close at hand and protect it that way.
Exactly.
Awesome. Good stuff, and we'll add those to the show notes as well. Can you share with Photo World one parting piece of guidance, the best way that we can reach you, whether it's your website or some sort of social media, and then we'll say goodbye?
Yeah. So wait, I'm sorry. You said parting
piece of guidance, yeah.
I would say to go ahead and prioritize, like figure out where your priorities lay. When, as a comms major, I remember one of the things that we learned a lot about was a triple bottom line, which is in the corporate world, people, planet, and profit. So people come first, planet comes second, and profit comes third. And they're obviously all like somewhat cyclical. They interact with each other. But I would figure out, like, as a business owner, like, what are your priorities? Like, for me, family and God is the first one. My clients are second, and then profit is third. And so the business decisions that I make are based on that tier. Like, okay, first of all, is this going to be good for my family? And it is in line with what I believe, like my core beliefs. Second of all, is it good for the people that I'm working with? And then third of all, profit. Profit comes in last. Profit is important, but profit is, mixed together with my family. Like, is this going to help me provide for my family? But like, my clients come above, like, well, is this just going to make a paycheck for me? So I would say keeping your triple bottom line in mind. And the best way to get in contact with me, or like I said, I love Instagram. My username is at Abby, ABBY, Grace Photo. So I'm on there a lot. I love, connecting with other photographers, but like for one-on-one conversations, email is definitely best for me. Please don't Facebook message me. I won't answer you.
Very good. And Photo World, again, we'll have Abby's website and her social links on the show notes page, so you can have a one-stop shop there. Abby, I cannot thank you enough for your time today and sharing such great value. Photo World thanks you, and happy shooting.
Thanks so much. Glad to do it.
Photo World, when was the last time you took a break? besttravelforless.com. It is the greatest one-stop shop for setting up all your travel needs. Don't have time for a break? That's okay too. Bundle all your booking needs for the next destination wedding at besttravelforless.com. Richard and Judy will be there to answer your questions and help with what you are planning. They are your personal travel agents without all those nasty fees. You can find your way there from takingtalkpics.com affiliates page, or reach them directly at besttravelforless.com. Thank you, Photo World, for tuning in to another great episode here on Take and Talk Pics. It was a pleasure having you, and I'll see you next time.